Hello. I call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. We have all of us here, Nick Maloney, Ted Gergen, myself, Dana Powers, Steve Brown, and Jack Nicolai. Nobody's absent. Administration, we have Dr. Valenza, and no visitors at this time.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Go ahead, Steve.
I move that we go into closed session in the middle school library pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data or involved in such problems or investigations. We'll also be discussing the 2022-2023 open enrollment applications, and also the enrollments in and the enrollments out applications, and also Wisconsin Statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and this is in discussion of administrator contracts.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Nick?
Aye.
Ted?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
And Dana, aye. We are in closed. Hello, we are back and open, so I will take motions. Oh, Steve.
Yes, I move to deny open enrollment applications for the 2022-2023 school year due to space limitations in special education programming as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
And I move to approve remaining open enrollment applications for the 2022-2023 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
I move to approve the administrative contract changes and compensation increases as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. Great. I move to adjourn our special session at 6:58. Anybody else?
Second.
Anybody else want to end this? Yeah, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and the meeting is adjourned. Okay, we have 2 minutes. Great.
Okay, good, and Diane has all this time, has all that stuff.
Yeah, just the information as far as when it came out.
Yes.
Can I get a pen? I don't. You do. I don't want to steal yours if you. Oh, you know what? I do have. Okay. No, you can. Do you want mine?
6:55.
Hello, I call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. We have all of us here, Nick Coloni, Ted Gergen, myself, Dana Powers, Steve Brown, and Jack Nikolai. Nobody's absent, and we have Marquez Guzman. Oh. Did I do it right?
You did.
And Connie Valenza.
You did that right too.
Oh, good. Visitors, please make sure that you've signed in at the, yep, you got it. And please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will take a motion on the agenda.
I move to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. President's report. Okay, I did not receive any emails from you guys, so status quo on what the committees are. I meant to pull those up, and I didn't. Okay, you guys know what they are. Perfect, so that all stays as is. Thank you very much. And then Steve, can you give us a update on CISA 2?
I have no clerk's report, and
nope.
just,
You're doing the CISA 2. Isn't that his update?
no, I was gonna do
I'm
that
sorry,
in
was that
June.
So
something?
as
I misunderstood.
President, you were going to appoint him as the CISA 2
sorry.
convention representative.
I misunderstood. Okay.
Okay.
Steve, how do you feel about being CISA 2?
I would be very happy to do that,
Okay,
since I'm
good.
also on the Board of Control,
Excellent.
and so I'll be happy to do that.
Okay, do we need a motion? No, just,
It's an appointment.
you are appointed.
Thank you.
Did you want to make a speech?
No, other than future meetings, I'll be giving a brief update, no more than 2 minutes, of what CISA 2 is doing and all the wonderful things they do for us.
Perfect. Thank you for being our representative.
Sure.
Okay, any correspondence?
I do not have any correspondence, Madam President.
Okay, fabulous. Ted?
I'm talking about staff farewell thing.
I've got it later too.
Okay.
Just a reminder that our staff farewell and retirement reception will be June 3rd, which is Friday, 2 p.m. Coincides with the last day of school for students in the afternoon. We'll be in the middle school gym and south cafeteria will be set up so that you can be on either side.
I will be there. Are you going to post for it?
We will
in case anyone
post
else-
it. And then typically you've said a few words and
Okay.
Awesome. All right, let's take a look at the treasurer's report. I will present the treasurer's report dated April of 2022. General fund cash account with a balance of $539,164.03. Credit cards with a balance of $30,181.69. EBC Flex and HRA cash account, $15,832.81. Capital Improvement Fund, or Fund 46, of $2,082,708.85. Petty cash, $300. Jack. LGIP, $4,501,156.21, which presents a grand asset total for April of 2022 of $7,169,343.59. Move to approve the treasurer's report dated April 2022 as presented.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, we'll take a look at the payment of accounts payable bills. And again, this is our second time, and my last reminder that now these are aligned to the actual treasurer's report, so the months are exactly the same. So this will be from April 1st, 2022 through April 30th, 2022. And these checks are numbered 70790, which was included in last month's, but is actually a credit in last month's accounts payable bills. And that goes through 71059, as well as 202100683 through 212200024. That'd be a total of checks of $750,254.47. I'd like to move to approve the payment of accounts payable bills dated April 1st through April 30th, 2022.
So moved. Did anybody have any questions? 2.5 pages of Amazon. It's impressive.
The purchasing deadline for teachers, so it shouldn't be that much next month. Yep.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And as you remember, last month, Marquez introduced the Fund 10 revenue report to us, that this is part of our audit response and our minutes, and just to keep us in compliance that each month we're going to present a revenue and expense report. So that was shared out in the agenda. If you could take a look, this shows us a nice comparison of last year's information to where we are in our current year. So if we look at Fund 10, if we look at our revenue limit, You can see we're currently at 69%, 69.25% of our revenue limit, which is a little bit higher than where we were last year. We're a little higher also though in our revenue, so we're at 66.27%, not anything significant compared to 65% last year. And then if you look at the second page, we're actually a little lower, probably significant if I were to do any statistics. We're at 45% of our expenses compared to 51% last year. So in terms of our expenditures, we're a little lower right now than where we were trending last year.
Yep.
So I don't know if you want to highlight anything specific there.
Yes.
You can obviously see that this is a complicated formula of school budgeting.
Yeah, so some of our larger expenses include our open enrollment payments out to other districts. That doesn't occur until June, so that makes up a sizable chunk of money. Additionally, we have a significant transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 27, which doesn't occur until the end of the year. We also have a transfer from Fund 10 to our Fund 46 account, which will occur. So those are all large expenses that won't show up until June.
Share what those funds are, just in general.
Yes,
so
you're
that
right.
makes sense.
So this is just Fund 10, which is our general fund account. Most school operations occur in Fund 10. Fund 27 is our special education fund. So we do receive reimbursement from the state and partially from the federal government. The state reimbursement rate, hovers around 28%, 29%. And then we also get some federal money through the IDEA grant. And then whatever the shortfall is, we have to transfer from our Fund 10 to Fund 27. And so that is, it's over $1 million that's going to be transferred at the end. And then the Fund 46 is our long-term capital improvement plan. We did have an increase in our operating referendum this year compared to last year. And so, that was with the expectation that, we'd have an increased Fund 46 transfer as well, which will help to offset some of the expenses of our referendum project as well. So those large chunks are still waiting to happen. And then we do have a large Chromebook expense that's coming up that will pop up as well. Last year at this time, we already had done that Chromebook purchase for Chromebooks for 2 grade levels. That will be coming on the May report. So those are just a couple large expenses that are still hanging out there. But overall, we'll be on under budget hopefully, and we're in a good position.
Yeah, Fund 382, the open enrollment, the 1.5 million. When are those funds paid out to those school districts where we have to pay?
So in July we get our final state aid payment, and as part of the state sends us a large chunk of money, millions of dollars, but they take out the money that goes to other districts, and we receive money from other districts as part of the big payment. We date it back to June though, even though the payment actually occurs like July 12th. So it will show up on the June report. So in July, when we present the June financials, it'll show up then. But we receive the money in July, but it technically gets booked to June.
So it's in the fiscal
Because
year
it is
budget versus going into the next.
Correct.
Okay, very
And then
good.
we also receive our last property tax payment in August, and that also gets booked to June, but I already know that amount, so.
Okay, very good, thank you.
And all those transfers are in that 800 interfund transfer.
Yeah, so 800 is where all the interfund transfers occur.
So there was a little bit of, some people had expressed a little bit of confusion in terms of when we went out for referendum, we went out for 18.3 million, but we talked in terms of a $21 million project. That's where that Fund 46 money that we had kind of put aside to be able to add to the actual referendum amount. So that's where that comes in. Okay.
Yeah, nothing else, unless anybody else has any questions?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So then we have the minutes of the regular school board meeting on April 26, 2022 as printed or amended.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular school board meeting dated April 26, 2022 as printed or amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And we have the minutes of the special board meeting 5/11/2022 as printed.
I move to approve the minutes of special school board meeting of May 11, 2022 as printed or amended.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, public comments. I do have one person down here. Just want to do some friendly reminders. We cannot have any specific names mentioned, students or staff. Please remain respectful and within that 3 minutes. And if for whatever reason we see that names are mentioned or anything along those lines, you will be stopped. So just want to make sure that those grounds are set here. So Nicole Haas. Oh, okay. You just need to state your name and your address. Even though I have it, you just need to state it for the record.
Nicole Haas, 8650 226th Avenue. Hello.
Hi.
I'm trying to balance my computer on here. Can I do this? All right. So I'm Nicole Haas. I am a big supporter of our school and have applauded your abilities many times, especially through the pandemic. I've been working with a group of parents that became Families for Falcons, whose mission is to advance the relationship between families and the school. We are now an inclusion school. While we agree with its benefits, I'm not convinced our implementation produced the goals that it intended. Due to shared concerns across the community, we've worked to gather feedback, which has informed 3 areas of concern. The first is staff empowerment and class assignments. Our feedback concludes that we didn't adequately empower and prepare our staff to execute an efficient inclusion model. This is not in alignment with the practice profile that was provided by the DPI. Furthermore, teacher involvement in class assignments was far less than previous years, and cross-functional training was inefficient. The voices of our teachers are crucial in order to execute satisfactory class assignments for inclusion, especially if we are experiencing constraints. The second concern is staffing. Obviously, we've lost roughly 18 educators this year. We expect these positions to be filled and expect an employee structure that matches our educators to the students and classrooms they are best fit to serve, and that all educational needs are satisfied. The third concern is the atmosphere of the school. We appear to have an inadequate support system that does not satisfy the individual interventions required for our special needs students. Classrooms are experiencing far too many disruptions, and students are thrown into anxiety-inducing situations. Our ability to intervene and manage timely database decisions for our students and classrooms is crucial. We had too many secure holds this year. Those within the school are being subjected to extreme verbal, physical, and disruptive situations with no productive consequence. The morale of numerous students and staff is shattered. We expect our staff to also work in an environment fostered by communication and trust, with their concerns evaluated seriously and within timely resolution. In conclusion, our expectations are as follows. We expect our school to create an aligned inclusion vision for next year with adequate training for all staff working with students, including long-term substitutes. We expect our school to create a teacher-led class structure. The skill sets of our teachers at the time of assignment should match the needs of the students. We also expect the school to revisit our discipline policies to deter negative behavior, not promote it. These policies need to be implemented consistently so that students and staff are provided with the structure they need in order to thrive. I had a nice conclusion about my stuff. Oh. Was that?
Carry on.
I like nice.
Yeah, it's fine.
In conclusion,
Carry on.
I'm sure there are other nuances and complications at play here, but regardless of our circumstances and constraints, we are still responsible for the well-being of our students and the education we provide to them, and we hope we can work together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Nicole. Something I didn't mention is it's not public comments aren't a Q&A, so this isn't talking back and forth, but that was very appreciative. Appreciate that very much. Happy to have you guys here at any meetings if you have any questions or concerns. Also know that you can reach out to Connie, any of the principals, or our new, what is her name? Chrissy? We'll prove that later. And our new Director of Student Services. So just know that those meetings do take place when somebody new is on board working through all those. So thank you. Appreciate it.
speaking of which, so we have a special education teacher resignation. Kelly Hoon, she's 7th grade special education teacher. She began with Salem in the 14-15 school year. She's accepted an offer at a school in her home district for the 22-23 school year. This allows her to be closer to her children and provides more flexibility within her schedule. So the motion to consider would be to accept Mrs. Kelly Hoon's resignation request effective at the end of the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
I move to accept Mrs. Kelly Hoon's resignation request effective at the end of the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
So we have a grade level teacher resignation. Michael Sanchez, 8th grade math teacher, began with Salem in October of 2020 as a 4th grade teacher. The motion to consider would be to accept Mr. Michael Sanchez's resignation request effective at the end of the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
I motion to accept Mr. Michael Sanchez's resignation request effective at the end of the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And Hannah Horrocks, so this one is a little different. She had gone on leave all of last year. She began in Salem in the 14-15 school year, was on family leave for the 2021-2022 school year, decided, as happens, that she was not going to return after going for the year on family leave. So the motion to consider would be to accept Mrs. Hannah Horrocks' resignation request effective at the end of the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
I move to accept Mrs. Horrocks' resignation request effective at the end of the 21-22 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
So we're going to start filling some of those positions. So we have a new hire for a student services director. I just want to talk a little bit about the process for hiring because it is an administrative position. We initially had the administrative team, including the new superintendent, sit in on interviews, made a decision as to who to interview, and interviewed 6 candidates. From the 6 candidates, narrowed it down to 3 candidates, invited some parents to participate in those interviews. We had staff involved in those interviews, and went through the process to narrow down from there. In that process, really narrowed down to a couple different finalists, and I shared all of the feedback that we got from parents, the feedback that we got from staff with the new superintendent. She interviewed the 2 candidates and made a decision at that point to offer the position to Christy Weinstock. She is presently the Director of Curriculum and Instruction and the Chief Academic Officer at Wilmot Union High School. Previous to that, she was an Associate Principal at Wilmot. She was an Assistant Principal at Mitchell 4K8 School in Racine. She was a Special Education Supervisor for middle school in the Racine Unified School District, and prior to that, a school psychologist with Community High School District 117. The motion to consider would be to approve a 1.0 FTE contract for the 2022-2024 school year. So a little different, typical for administrators to have a 2-year contract of not less than $115,000 annually.
I move to approve a 1.0 FTE contract for Christy Weinstock for the 2022 through 2024 school years of not less than $115,000 annually.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
We have a series of Phi Ed teachers that we'll be hiring this evening. First of all, we have Daniel John Cates, was teaching in Cudahy School District, summer school teacher in Cudahy High School and Riverview Elementary, a volunteer with Special Olympics, involved in co-curriculars, both middle school volleyball and track and field, has his educational background as a BS in education from UW-Whitewater. The motion to consider would be to approve a 1.0 FTE contract for the 2022-23 school year of not less than $48,500.
Motion to approve a 1.0 FTE contract for the 2022-2023 school year of not less than $48,500.
You just mentioned his name.
Oh, sorry. I motion to approve Daniel John Cates for a 1.0 FTE contract for the 2022-2023 school year of not less than $48,500.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Used to see it in motion, so I never read it.
Just anybody who wants to be a PE teacher can just.
Just to clarify, because I know we have some new people in the audience, when you see that language of not less than, typically what that means with the teacher is we haven't necessarily settled the contract for the following year. So it's possible it could go up. So our contract language is always written in that not less than language. So then we have Alexis Lewis. Lois? Lois. She has experienced student teaching at Della Vendarian High School and Prairie View Elementary School. She's certified first aid, CPR, health education, and adaptive PE. She's had co-curricular experience at UW-Whitewater and club softball. She has her educational background with a BS in education from UW-Whitewater. The motion to consider would be to approve a 1.0 FTE contract for the 2022-2023 school year of not less than $44,000.
I move to approve a 1.0 FTE contract for Alexis Lois for the 2022-23 school year of not less than $44,000.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And the third, physical education, and I just want to clarify, so we had two resignations. One, of course, was Hannah's, and then we had a mid-year resignation, so that would be the two positions that we're filling. The third position, in trying to create more preparation time for our teachers and to create a little better scheduling situation, a decision was made to hire a fourth Phy-Ed teacher to create some of that space within the schedule.
What's his name? Who's the one staying?
Oh, Dakota.
Dakota Precision. Yep. So the last one then would be Brady Wilkham. He's actually been working with us on a temporary contract. He started kind of mid-year with us. He had student teaching experience in Riverview Elementary, again, volunteer with Special Olympics, has done co-curriculars with Wheatland Center basketball and Bristol and Riverview softball. Education is a bachelor's in education from UW Oshkosh. The motion to consider would be to approve a 1.0 FTE contract for the 2022-2023 school year of not less than $44,900.
I move to approve a 1.0 FTE contract for Brady Wilkham for the 2022-2023 school year of not less than $44,900.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Then we have a new hire of a speech and language pathologist. This would be Haley Zwiefka. Experience including externships at Section Elementary School in Mugwanago, an ENT clinic at Frederick Medical College, and then Child Language Voice and Neurogenic Clinic in Milwaukee. She has an education background with a bachelor's in communication sciences and disorders from Illinois State University and an MS in communication sciences and disorders from UW-Milwaukee. The recommendation would be to approve a 1.0 FTE contract for the 2022-23 school year of not less than $50,000.
I move that we approve a 1.0 FTE contract for Haley Zwiefka for the 2022-2023 school year of not less than $50,000.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So we have some bonding resolutions to address this evening, and I'm going to invite Lisa to come up. She is an expert in this area, to share a little bit of the information on that I probably will clumsily share if it's left to my devices. I did want to share with the board that we are on track. If you recall, at the last board meeting, I shared with you that financing timeline and the participants involved in that. But beyond that, this evening, we have a couple resolutions that we need to consider, and I'm going to let you explain what those resolutions are.
Hi everyone, good to see your smiling faces.
Two in person, too.
Good to see you. Again, I'm Lisa Boyson from Baird, and I've worked with the district for many years, and we talked about this on April. Congratulations on the successful referendum. We talked about kind of I went into detail on the 20th, so I was just gonna be more for a resource, but let me just give you the high level. Your first resolution is the bridge loan or the construction loan. We call it a bond anticipation note, okay? So the idea for that is to have the funds borrowed invested quickly so we can begin to have investment earnings, because all the earnings on that 18.3 million bond anticipation note goes towards projects. This note, the proceeds all go into your project fund. So that's locked in. We went for some bank bids for this note, and Zions Bank out of Utah, I think it was a 198, which is a good rate, about what we've been getting for school districts bands in the last couple of weeks. And so that's the first resolution, is to approve and adopt that bridge loan and close on June 14th. So June 14th, you'll have the cash, you'll be able to start paying invoices. The second resolution is for the parameters, so the parameters for the bonds. Establishing payment dates, principal payments, who your paying agent is. A lot of boilerplate language in that resolution for just bond issuance, but the idea is that once we lock in the interest rates, that if we hit all these parameters, and they're pretty flexible, then we can lock in any day. So that's the high level of the two resolutions. Are there any questions?
We can mention that we have our bond rating call next week.
Oh, okay.
We schedule our bond rating call. Any of you are welcome to join us.
Oh.
Standard & Poor's.
I'm busy then.
So interesting. And I'd like to just mention that today we locked in 2 bond issues. It was the best day in the market since January. So we sold Cedar Grove, Belgium under 4%, and we sold Hayward at under 4%. So it was just a great day in the bond market today. So hopefully we'll have a good day for you guys. And they have a better bond rating, so that's probably why they got under 4%, but you never know. So
I thought all we had to do was to have that financial report every month, and then we'd get that bond rating.
We added the monthly revenues and expenditures.
That's all we had to do.
checking the good box for you
Right.
guys. So, again, I think we're on track, and we're, once we have the bond rating call, it'll take a week or 2 to get the bond rating. And once that's in place, we can hit the ground running and lock in. So I'm hoping by mid to late June.
Great.
So we need some motions.
I move to authorize the issuance and sale of $18,300,000 bond anticipation note pursuant to section 67.121B Wisconsin statutes. We doing these separate?
So,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move to approve authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $18.3 million in general obligation refunding bonds.
So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Can't we come up with like 5 or 6 questions for Lisa since she drove all the way out here?
My backyard.
Really? Oh,
Not too bad.
it's an hour, dude.
Depends what part of Walker shop.
That's a long drive.
So we have so earlier this evening in closed session, we actually went through the process of approving open enrollment applications in and out. The reason those are done in closed session is that if you recall back in January, we made some decisions about the open enrollment openings that we had, both for students in our regular programming and also for students in special education programming. At that time, the board made a decision to close our school to open enrollment of special education students. So then when you get applications in, some of those applications may be students that are special education, so then the board would have to go through a process of considering, but to do that, an open session would identify who those students are, which is protected information. So that's why it's done in closed session, but then at the regular board meeting after, we kind of talk in general terms about who the students are and where they're coming from. So one of the things that has been a little bit useful is to take a look at where our students are that are requesting open enrollment out, where they live. And the reason that's kind of unique or an interesting thing to look at is that unlike the vast majority of the state away from here, Salem is a K-8 district, and that's a very unique kind of district to this area where you have separate high school districts and separate K-8s. So you have many very close K-8s together that all feed into the same high school. And so you typically do see a fair amount more of kind of open enrollment back and forth because those boundaries are also close. So if you take a look, for example, at this map, you'll see that the large majority of our students that are requesting to open enroll out live on that Paddock Lake kind of side. The other large group live down in that kind of Triever-Wilmot side of the district. So that's just one thing to kind of note, one of the things that we look at. And then we also kind of take a look at the 4K kind of world and see where those kids are going. And so you can see in this case, again, it kind of follows that same pattern where the majority of our families of 4K students that opt to open enroll out are either up in that Paddock Lake area or down in that kind of Triever-Wilmot area. You can see overall for 2022, 2023, the number of students who are open enrolling in, so this was this present school year, was at 92. That's actually an increase from what we've had in the past. We've had kind of over the last few years a narrowing of what was a pretty significant disproportional back 3 years ago or so to still, you know, definitely a gap there between open enrollment in and out, but somewhat of a narrowing of that. So 92 presently students open enrolled in. This does not include, though, our present 8th grade students, because it rolls them forward a year. So when you see grade 8 students, that's actually present 7th grade students. So again, as you take a look, you can see open enrollment in. The largest number of students coming in are from Silver Lake, Triever-Wilmot, and then Kenosha Unified. Again, makes sense, fairly close districts to us or bordering districts. Then when you take a look at open enrollment going out, this year, 159 students going out. So again, that imbalance, although it's a large imbalance, pretty significantly less than it used to be, but still something that we want to take a look at. The vast majority of our students that are leaving are going to Bristol. Again, if you take a look, you know, one of the things that's very unique about Bristol is that there are legitimately students that live in our district that are closer to Bristol School District, kind of the same in that Triever-Wilmot area. You can see that's the other biggest district that we send to. So in terms of sending students out for a total of the 159,000. 100. Wow. It's at least $159,000. 159 students. So in the mix, you can see for 2022, 2023, we currently, so this would be this last school year that we're presently in, we have 92 coming in, 159 going out. Of new applications, we have 18 coming in, 45 going out. However, then when you see applications, that's always a little confusing because a student can put into up to 3 school districts. So you're typically going to see more applications than actual student numbers. So again, you can see that imbalance does continue. The largest part of it is in that K-4 world. That's something that we've struggled with. Last year, we gained a little bit of traction because we opened up a full-day 4K. Many districts are now doing the same, so it's not as much of a selling point anymore. And typically, 4K is the area where we've lost more students. Sometimes, is it because we're a larger school district than many of those school districts? You know, any number of reasons. But again, that pattern, which has been pretty typical over the last years, remains.
I mean, excuse me, just one comment about what you just said. I think it's important that everyone, you know, when you look at the size, the total size of a school district, and I've said this before, that class sizes are important. I mean, obviously, we have at or near 1,000 students here. Other school districts that you've talked about might have, except for Bristol, a lot smaller, or quite a bit smaller. But as you look at class sizes, what impact does that have? And should we be more positive about class sizes as we look at these numbers, just from the standpoint?
So I think class sizes is huge, but I think it's important to remember that this year, in the middle of the open enrollment period, we were focused on trying to pass a referendum. So one of the topics that we talked about in that referendum was the need to pass that operating referendum to maintain class size. We do have very good class sizes. We typically, for example, at 4K are in that 16 range. We're in the 18 range, and then moving up into the lower grades, we don't really go above 24, 25 anymore. When I came here, we were more in that 28, 29 window for some of those upper grade levels, so we've definitely put a significant amount of dollars into hiring staff to decrease class size. We actually have put you never feel like you have enough staff. But staffing-wise, when it comes to special education staffing, student services, the number of counselors, school psychologists, social workers, we are way out and above any of the districts that surround us. And not even when you look proportionally at overall numbers. So and I understand when staff is feeling the heat of struggling with different issues, it doesn't feel like we have excessive staff, and I would never argue that we have excessive staff. But we're well-staffed from a student class size perspective, from a student caseload perspective in special education, and from a student services, when you think about counselors, social workers, school psychologists. That being said, though, I think one of the real keys for passing that referendum was to try and maintain staff. Had that referendum not passed, we would be having a hugely different conversation right now. So again, I think that was really important for us to do that. But certainly that is an aspect that I think is good for people to know. I think what is challenging from the perspective of Salem is that Salem is the largest K-8 school district in the state of Wisconsin. So that creates some challenges when you have that large number of students within one building spanning 8 grade levels. And if you think about a typical district, for example, one that I came from, you would have a high school, which would be fairly typical, but we had 3 other schools that absorbed about the same number of students. So a very different feel. And I think, it's interesting as we talked with our parents, one of the things our parents told us a lot of is they really like the one-stop shop. So one office, one place to take care of everything. But some of the challenges of that are 1,000+ students in one building, 8 grade levels, or actually 10 grade levels in the same building. So,
Thank you.
right?
I think, something we've talked about, like, obviously the gap is getting closed up, tightened up. I'm not sure what dollars look like. I know prior to this year, we were $1 million sending out to open enrollment. It's obviously less than that now. But I think Nicole's work, social media wise, is gonna, I think telling the story of like what opportunities are created in a big environment. I think her work with the social media is really gonna help, like maybe attract some of those border, like people on the fence to see some of the great things that are happening because we're able to do those because of the power of scale.
And I think one of the things that we've had a lot of conversations about with staff are what's unique about Salem. And I think as you look at the focus of our last referendum was really trying to move in a direction of providing some of those more hands-on activities and increasing the level of science that our students have access to and some of that type of instruction that hopefully will become kind of a draw. Because as you look at families making a decision to move to a particular district or open enroll students to a particular district, you have to have that conversation around what is it about that district that would compel me to want to go there when I have so many districts within close proximity that I might be able to choose from. All right, any other questions on open enrollment? Okay. So then just a referendum update to kind of keep you apprised of where we're at. We've tried to move fairly quickly with the goal of getting a construction manager in place and then also working through what exactly is the final kind of design. What are we building? What does that look like? So we've been meeting on a biweekly basis as a leadership team with our architect, with PRA, and then holding a series of meetings with staff members to get their input to kind of do some of that final design. So meetings that have been held over the last week or into this week with the principals, with the overall student services team to talk about spaces for collaboration and support and offices for personnel. We met with food service to really talk about that kitchen area on the back where the hump is. We met with the 4th and 5th grade team because remember that's an area of the building where there'll be some updating at least to talk about what should those classrooms look like, what kind of casework, for example, should be in those classrooms. Met with 4K, 5K team, that's another area where there's some significant renovation down in that area. Met with our technology group to get a feel for the impact of technology. Met with building and grounds to talk about where are we gonna take garbage out, where do we do storage, what are we doing with that space in the building that won't be there. We've set up a committee for indoor learning and lab space. So like our science teachers and that, they'll be meeting actually on Friday the morning this week with the architects. And outdoor learning and kind of playground committee will be meeting with the architects on Friday as well. FIAD has already met with them in music. Now, that's not to say these are the only meetings that will be held, but I just wanted you to be aware of kind of where things are at in that role of trying to get kind of feedback from our staff and how they use their spaces and what they're looking for in some of those new spaces. We put out our RFP for construction management services. Remember that the responses are due May 26th, so coming up very soon. I'll be asking to set up a committee meeting to come up with that short list of firms to do interviews with, and then that overall interview and award process. It's been a very busy week for me, meeting with many of these construction to give them kind of a tour of the building. You can see we've held
You
tours.
have that process down, right? Like,
I do. I know this building really well. But the funny thing is they rolled in on when I was, so we'd take pictures ahead of our dress-up days. So I had my glamorous outfit on. I was out in front of the building getting pictures taken like I was a Hollywood movie star when one of the construction firms rolled up. And I had to explain to them that that would not be my normal process in meeting with them, but
We're changing policy.
yes. So trying to kind of work through making sure they had a chance in coming up with their proposal to see the building and understand what the kind of vision and project is. So I've held tours with Cher, Findorff, Cullen, Myron, C.D. Smith, and BJS. We've had 2 that let us know that they would not be submitting. Nexus is tied up in projects. Kramer Brothers is a large builder. They do like all the Kalaharis, they do large hospital and school projects. But when they found out I wasn't gonna be here, they decided that they're pretty pulled right now in different directions, so they will not be submitting. But I do believe the other 6 will be. There's still one hanging out there that I've not heard from, but we're gonna have, I think, at least 6 proposals for construction firms.
Nick, did you make a phone call? Just kidding. Just wondering if you had a hand in that.
So any questions about where we're at referendum-wise? Okay. So then the last item I have, just to kind of touch on some of the year-end activities, you may want to get them scheduled in. Obviously, May 26th is our field day. It's a big day here. It just also happens to fall when we have the Wax Museum scheduled. So we had a high-powered meeting today just to talk about parking for everybody, but that'll be an exciting day. Forecast is not perfect.
I know.
So we're gonna try and hope that works out. Coming up on Friday this week, we have no school for students on Friday, half-day teacher in service. So part of that will be working somewhat, some of those groups will be working with the architects to kind of work through that projects, some of the projects, and then the others will be working on their different activities that they've got going. June 1st, our 8th grade promotion ceremony at 6 p.m., presently scheduled for outside. Again, weather not looking perfect. However, it started out at 90% chance of thunderstorms. We're down to 70%. So let's hope it keeps, kind of keep an eye on that. June 3rd, last day of school, which is a half day for students. And then, as I mentioned earlier this evening, that year closing program honoring our retirees and saying goodbye to the school year, which I'm sure there will be plenty that will be happy to do that, at 2 o'clock on that afternoon.
Do you know if Vicki can make that, or is she still in?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can check with her. So I'm guessing she's probably trying to close down her own.
Yeah, I wondered.
So, all right. So committee reports, we have none. However, we have a need to schedule. One would be building and grounds to take a look at those RFPs when they get in. There are, like I said, there'll be the 6. We'll kind of want to narrow down who are the ones we bring back for the full board to kind of interview.
Is that Nick and Jack?
Nick and Jack. Yep. And I don't have a deadline yet, but we got a whole pile of policies that we want to update before we kind of hand that off to the new superintendent so that she doesn't have to walk in kind of behind on some of those. I met with our policy expert, and he's working on getting kind of some of the recommended changes and things like that pulled together. So we'll have to, sometime the goal that we've kind of set is to approve those policies for first reading in that last June meeting. So somewhere in between now and then, when I get the okay from our policy person, we'll be setting something up for that as well. Okay.
Okay.
I would be busy.
Jack's gonna be
Yeah.
busy.
I'm happening.
Okay.
Jack and Steve.
Good. Very good.
Upcoming board meetings, our next regular school board meeting, I say our because I'll be leaving after that. It's my last board meeting. Tuesday, June 28th, 2022, here. So that's all I have.
I hope to adjourn the meeting at 7:51. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we are adjourned. Thanks, guys.
I got another proposal for our insurance.
I've done it so many times.